So these three ratios which I discussed are applicable for a lead, developer, manager. Everybody should look into these three ratios, and then they can get a signal, green signal or red signal, whether the project health is good or health is bad. Now after discussing these three really practical metrics, we will see some practical tips and tricks for successfully completing an IT project. See, to complete an IT project, you need not follow all the project management book of knowledge, guidelines, and other conventional tips and tricks, because the market dynamics are like that. The requirements are constantly changing. Okay, even your team may not be stable. Somebody may resign in your team. These things can happen. Okay, and the number of modules may increase. Customer may increase, give additional requirements every month. So as a manager or a lead or architect, you should always visualize the entire system in your mind and understand two things for every module. Remember, a project is what or a project is what? It consists of some modules, say 100 modules. Now think that for each module, say X, how many other modules are using this X? And second scenario, how many modules this X module is using? I will repeat once again. There are how many modules which are using X, and X is using how many other modules? It's a bidirectional relationship. If you understand this relationship for every module, you can control the project health. Then project scope will be in your control. You can understand the interaction between different modules, and your life will be simplified. Complexity will reduce. So most of the times we don't understand this, and we start coding one module and then realize, oh, this module is using 10 other modules. So this picture should be there in your mind for every module. You can write a use case diagram or a ER diagram or whatever artifacts you can use, but you should understand these two scenarios. Second tip is prioritizing the features of any IT project or a software or a product in terms of business value. See, I am a triple MBA, MBA from IIM plus MBA from Harvard. Okay, so I am writing a product not for myself but for the client. I am not developing the features for my value. It is for the client's business value. So I have to put myself in the shoes of the customer, and I have to realize the pain or the problem faced by the customer, and then dedicate my concentration to those features which are more valuable to the client, not for me, myself. Okay, I am not writing the project for my use, it is for the client's use. Suppose I have 10 features. The feature number 1 has the most business value. It is like 80% of the value, and the rest 9 features hold 20% of the value. I can use the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule, and I can concentrate my time and energy and focus first on the feature number 1 because it holds the maximum business value. So always keep this thing in the mind. Think from the customer's perspective. Second is, see, as a good manager or as a good architect, we should try to get some warning signals or the future possibilities or the future difficulties or complexities which my project can face. See, right now everything looks fine for the first 1 year, but am I giving 1 year solution to the client? If I am doing that, I am not a good project manager at all, no matter how many MBAs I hold. The first thing I have to realize that I have to give a long-term solution to the client. Long-term means say 5 years or 10 years. My product should be stable. So I have to think from the long-term perspective because I have to build a long-term relationship with the client. I have to give a long-term solution always. So I have to sense in the next 5 years or at least in the next 3 years what difficulties or scenarios can come which can break my product or project. So it can be a technical difficulty, technical complexity, or non-technical also, or semi-technical also. The other thing is that once I know the warning signals, then only I should commit on some deadlines. I should never commit something to the client without having a contingency plan. See, in the SDLC, we always say that there should be 5 to 15% buffer time kept for any contingency for the risk management. Because see, anything can happen in the future. The technology I am using might become obsolete. Okay, the tool I am using, the company which developed the tool, the company closes down. Anything can happen, just imagine. So I have to have some disaster recovery contingency plan, say 5 to 10% of my time. And then only I should give some deadlines or commitment to the client. So basically, see, project management is all about common sense. It's not about MBA or PMP. I have seen when I was working in the US, I met MBA from Stanford and Harvard who were doing internship in Bank of America. They said, Satyarth, it's not our MBA knowledge of Stanford or Harvard. It's all common sense. Project management is all common sense. What is MBA? It's common sense. What is software engineering? It's all common sense. See, by that I mean, why I am using a technology, why I am using a particular way of writing a code, or why I am using a particular process. I should question myself. I should use my common sense. Why I am giving 10 hours to this feature and 1 hour to this, like. So, if we use our common sense, like most of the times, we will be right and correct in our estimate and give the right commitment to the client. Remember one thing, if you really want to be a good architect or a manager or a delivery head, always consult your team before accepting any deadlines from the client. Don't keep your team in the dark. See, if I commit something to the client and then my team members, see, I will not code, my team members are the actual coders, and they are saying, sir, this cannot be done in this time. So it leads to conflicts, and this leads to resignations, delays, and all those things. So I should always consult all the team members, whether he is a junior or he is a senior. Everybody should be kept in the loop and consulted, and then only client deadlines should be accepted or modified accordingly. See, goals should always be very smart goals, specific, measurable, and time bound. The second thing is that, as we all know, without teamwork and delegation, no project can be successful. See, you are not a Superman that you can manage also, you can develop also, you can test also. You need a team. You need to delegate the problems or the functionalities. But what is more important is justified delegation. Most of the time we delegate wrong work to wrong person at the wrong time. So we should do a SWOT analysis of our team, identify the strengths and weaknesses of each of our team members. Maybe I can have a one-to-one meeting if I am the manager. I can know their interest areas. Suppose if one of my team members wants to work in the UI, the other is more comfortable with the database. So I can assign the database portion of work to that team member and the UI portion of work to the other team member. Because maybe a team member is saying, sir, I have already done a similar kind of UI design in my previous company. So I want to take the front end. The other developer is saying, sir, I am more comfortable with the middle tier. So accordingly, assign the right portion of work to the right person at the right time in the right proportion. And then you will be a winner, the real project manager. And because you will get the maximum efficiency from the team. See, if right work is given to me, I will be happy. Then work is not a burden. I can enjoy my work and I will deliver with better results. So remember this justified delegation concept. Just plain delegation is not important, is not enough. Most of the times in IT projects, I will take an example of a government IT project. I will not name it, but it had lot of delays. Why government IT projects get delays? And that may happen with not only government, even with private players. See, because most of the times we are doing the same conventional manual process. Like I want to audit my code, I am doing a manual code review. Whereas nowadays, so many good tools are available for automated code review, automated testing. There are many tools available which can automate 80% of your work, which you do manually nowadays. Okay. So try to automate as many things as possible to reduce the time gap and to reduce the errors also. I am not saying that you automate everything and just remove everybody from the team. See, everything cannot be automated. But nowadays there are so many tools and techniques available from the open source industry. You can use them and automate your work and get and give the product to the client in a lesser time. The client will be more than happy. You have saved his time, and because time is money. As a manager or as an architect, always give equal weightage to all the phases of SDLC. See, even whether it is a mundane task like proof of concept POC, whether it is coding, code review, bug fixing, rework, re-engineering, installation, deployment, environment creation, creation of build script or test plans. See, I've talked about so many things. Everything has a priority. Even if there is a one weak link, your project will never be successful in long term. Normally as a manager or as an architect, even I as a technical lead, I get carried away. Oh, I have to use this technology, that technology, this server, this technique, this algorithm. Don't get carried away with too much with the coding style. Other phases are also important. Environment creation, analysis, okay, proper review, proper creation of test plans. So don't get carried away too much with hi-fi technologies. Give equal emphasis and divide your work. It's like divide and conquer, the British rule. How the Britishers ran over India. Divide and rule. So always divide the things and focus one at a time and then conquer it. If I am creating a build script, just forget what server, what language I am using. Create on the build script. Focus on that only. So all the activities are important and should be given equal weightage while doing the estimation, while giving the commitment to the client. All the phases should be kept in mind. Always understand the project requirements and try to divide the requirements into functional and semi-functional and non-functional. See, always there are three types of requirements: functional, non-functional or technical, semi-functional or semi-technical. So try to classify the requirements and then visualize each classification at a time. See, if I have 100 requirements, it's difficult to visualize all the 100 at a time. But if I divide them into functional category, non-functional category, it's easy to rule. It's easy to understand the requirements. And remember, if any requirement is not clear, immediately get it verified from the client at the right time. Don't shy away that, okay, I can clarify this requirement because it is a low priority requirement, and then I give the commitment to the client, and then I don't meet the commitment in future and have a loss of faith. Even if it is a minor requirement, please clarify the client. I am not saying call the client at 2 p.m. while he is sleeping. Okay, you should maintain a proper communication channel. Maybe write the email to the client. So unless all the requirements are clear, then only give him the commitment. Because today some requirement which is looking like a low priority requirement, it might become a bottleneck in future. Don't underestimate a horse. A horse which is running slow might run very fast. So a small requirement can become a big requirement. Okay. So just clarify all your doubts at the beginning from the client. As a lead or architect, we always try to divide the error scenarios, the exceptions, and the validations into two categories: business and the technical. See, whenever I try to code in my last company when I was in Dell, my architect used this concept. We divided all the exceptions into business exception and technical exception. Errors into business error, technical error. Validation into business validation, technical validation. By doing this, my life becomes very easy, code complexity is minimized. See, because technical validation and technical errors does not hold much business value, but business errors have a more high priority value for the client. Okay. I'll give an example. Suppose you are doing a data type validation. It can be a technical validation, but you are doing a validation that your password cannot exceed say 7 characters. That is a business validation, business requirement. So always classify and divide your scenarios into business and technical, and then your life will be very easy and you can command your project. You will never be out of scope. So just remember. See, normally we always have a habit that we do the estimation and then we forget it, like do and forget. It's very wrong habit. Please try to revise your estimates. Discuss your estimation. Even if you are the senior manager, discuss with your team members. He may have some idea which you don't get. So always review and revise your estimates from time to time. More or less it should be stable, but it might need some correction, say 2%. Even 2% is important. So, and whenever you do any estimation, always list down all the assumptions, dependencies and constraints in the beginning. See, there is no IT project in the world which does not have any assumptions or dependencies or constraints, technical constraints or any other constraints. Dependencies, it may be dependent on some technology, okay, for which the support is not available, say in India. I am developing a software using some technology or tool for which the support is not available only out of India. So that is my dependency. If the support is not there, I cannot work further. So always keep assumptions and dependencies in your mind. It's not that you can list everything in the beginning on day one. You have to constantly revise it. Maybe after 1 month, you can add one assumption more or one dependency more. See, because everything is very dynamic nowadays. So always revise your work. If you are a lead or a manager, always maintain a transparency between the customer, you yourself and your team members. It should not be like that customer wants something, okay, and you understand something and your team members have some other expectations. Always set a feasible expectations to all your team members in the beginning and be very clear what is needed from your team. What happened, I will tell an example in my case. Once I did very good work, but I could not meet the expectation because I was not clear what actually was wanted from me. I am a developer. I thought, okay, X is wanted and I give X, but he wanted Y. So always be very clear as a manager or architect what you want from each of your team member. Okay, set smart goals, set feasible expectations from your team, and always never leave any gap between the client and the team. It should not be that you know 10 things and your team members know only 5 things. Whatever client has told you, you should convey in the easiest format to your team members at the right time. Never keep your team in the dark, because your project is success is because of your team success. Never underestimate the importance of training. See, to save some dollars, I will not go for the training. This is a bad scenario. If my team members, which can be developers or testers, need some additional skill training to enhance their productivity, go and provide them. Because see, if I can invest $100 in the training, they can do their work in say much faster way. They can save 10 days. 10 days saved is like $10,000 saved for the client. So it's a win-win situation. They get additional skills. The team members, they grow in the knowledge. They feel happy. They do their work in the easiest and the fastest possible manner. And the client is also happy. So it's all a win-win situation. The next tip is documentation should be very well written and properly reviewed from time to time and updated. See, it's a very bad practice in Indian IT industry that only business analyst will do the documentation and project manager or architect will review it. No, everybody has the right to see the documentation. Even my junior team member should see the documentation. He can have some tips, some suggestions for improvement. There is always a scope for improvement. So everything should be well documented, and it's not that I do some documentation which one of my team members cannot understand. Whatever is documented should be understandable by all my team members. Then only I can be successful. Because a well-written documentation which is reviewed and known to each of my team members, this will reduce the chances of conflicts which I can have with my client in the future. Otherwise my client will say, okay, this was not documented, or this was not I wanted, or my team member can cry, oh, I understood this because it was not in the document, so I did something, I coded something else. So documentation can make or break your project, remember. I'm not saying that spend 30% of your time in documentation. You can be agile, but maintain to the point and concise documentation, to the point. As a manager, always try to monitor and measure your team's performance. Say, when I am the manager, if I become the manager, I will do it for every 2 to 3 weeks. You can do in every 1 month. Okay, don't interfere in your team's work, but secretly, I will say, in like a background process, try to see what your team is doing and monitor their performance without causing any interference in their work. And then try to resolve the issues on time. Suppose if one of my team members is not performing well, I can maybe delegate his piece of work to somebody else and exchange the work. Give him a low complexity work, give the higher complexity work to a team member who is performing better than him. Because see, nowadays it's very difficult to remove a team member and hire a new team member. So I have to swap the work delegation, change the piece of work. This I can only do if I know how each of my team member is performing. I have to measure their performance. It should not be a shock to me that after 2 months I realize, oh, this guy is not performing in my team. See, always create a happy environment. See, coding and programming and software engineering is not something like preparing a piece of cake or preparing some dishes in the kitchen. It's a creative work. I don't know why managers don't understand this nowadays. It's very creative. You should be having a peace of mind. You should be very happy. Then you can think of a good algorithm or a good pseudo code. So always create a very healthy and a happy and a transparent environment so that your team can nurture in that environment without any fear. If anybody is facing any problem, any issue, he can report, give a correct report, correct status to you, so that the bottlenecks can be resolved on time. Most of the times it happens that, suppose I am a team member, I will shy away from going to my manager and saying that, sir, I am not able to do this, or I am not good at this technology, because of the fear of rejection or whatever. So always create a fearless environment for driving any successful IT project. Invest some time and efforts and money even in motivating your team. Maintain their interest levels and dedication levels. Take them for team outing, team building activities. Say, I am not saying that you do that on the project time. You can take them on the weekends. Weekends are free. Okay. Or maybe after 6 o'clock when you do because the client is paying for 8 hours. After 8 hours, what you do is not, client is not bothered about that. So team building activities are very, very important, because they should also get very fresh. Because see, unless they are happy, they will not get the fresh ideas. They will not give good suggestions. And that will not improve the code quality. Because coding is all creativity.